I would say what we have to talk about today is a very quality rumor. It's a big deal that has definitely some real credence, but should still be taken with a grain of salt. Basically, Andy Robinson, the owner of Video Games Chronicle, one of the most reputable gaming sites there are, during the recent Video Games Chronicle podcast that was elaborating upon their Switch 2 report, there was a moment around the 5-minute 55-second mark, I'll be putting a link in the description below, where Andy Robinson says, "I've heard Metroid Prime 4 is the last big Nintendo Switch game." Now he goes on to say that there was some chatter and he heard from some people who would know about this, that this is what's going on, but he also makes sure to say that he has yet to put out a report on this because there's not enough sourcing on this for him to feel fully confident on. Hence why we're talking about this as a rumor and not as a leak. This isn't a Video Games Chronicle or Eurogamer report. This is a rumor because there hasn't been enough sourcing on it from Andy Robinson for him to actually put a report on it. That all said, this is potentially something huge. But what does this mean exactly? Metroid Prime 4 being the last big Switch game. I think there are a number of implications, and that's what we're talking about today.
Hey, listen!
Welcome everyone, this is Andre's Restart, and this time we are talking about Metroid Prime 4 being the last big Nintendo Switch game and what this might mean. But before going forward, let me point out that we are aiming to hit 50,000 subscribers by the end of the year. It is going to be a tall task, but if you do enjoy my content, please subscribe and hit the notification bell. With your help, we might just have a chance. So I'll just say again, take this with a grain of salt, but we are going to assume for the sake of discussion in this video that what Andy Robinson has heard is the truth. Metroid Prime 4 is the last big Nintendo Switch game. What does this mean for Metroid Prime 4? What does this mean for the Nintendo Switch and the Switch 2? Well, first let's talk about this from the perspective of Switch. So if Metroid Prime 4 is to be the last big Switch game, what that implies is that afterwards, there's not going to be any major titles coming out for Switch. But what do we qualify as a major title? A while back we heard from people like Andy Robinson and Christopher Dring that Tears of the Kingdom is the last big Nintendo Switch title for a while. Yet here we are in October about to get Mario Bros. Wonder. Does that count? And now all of a sudden Metroid Prime 4 counts as a big Nintendo Switch game? I have high hopes for Metroid Prime 4. I think from a quality perspective, a critical acclaim perspective, this is going to be a Game of the Year caliber kind of game. It's going to probably get a nomination. That's how good I think this game is going to be. But from a sales perspective, it's probably not going to hit 30 million, probably not going to hit 20 million. And maybe it's weird to say that before actually seeing what Metroid Prime 4 is all about, but I'm simply making that assumption based off the history of different Metroid releases. But who knows, maybe this time for Metroid Prime 4, they're doing something really special here, and it is going to be a big seller as well. But what I'm going to figure what this might mean for Switch owners is that once Metroid Prime 4 comes out, there will still be games coming to Switch, but it's probably going to be mostly remasters. So think back to the Nintendo 3DS. In those last 2 years for 3DS, 2017 to 2019, there were a number of remakes and remasters and ports and demakes that came out that really helped to fill up the lineup. About 40% of the games that came out during that time were those kinds of games. And then there was also Pokemon and Yokai Watch and some other smaller titles. And that was pretty much the lineup in those last 2 years. But these last 2 years were also the years of the Switch era, the beginning of the Switch era. So my belief is that Nintendo's probably going to treat the Switch in a similar way as we transition onto the Switch 2. The big difference though is that the Switch may be backwards compatible with the Switch 2. So I think there's probably going to still be some major games coming out during the beginning of the Switch 2 era that could still be on Switch. For example, next year's Pokemon game, probably going to come out on the Switch. But in terms of internally developed major Nintendo projects, their AAA efforts, once the Switch 2 comes out, that's going to be where those games will be coming out. So the next 3D Mario, I think there's a good chance it's going to be exclusive to the Nintendo Switch 2, and it's being said by multiple sources apparently that that's going to be the big launch title. Which brings me to Metroid Prime 4 itself. So if Metroid Prime 4 is the last big Switch game, then that implies that it would come out before Switch 2, correct? And if we're thinking that Switch 2 is coming out sometime in the second half of 2024, I'm thinking likely October is the latest we see it come out, because if it's launching with 3D Mario and they want it to come out before the Pokemon game that typically comes out in November, considering the history of Mario games coming out in October during the Switch era with Odyssey in 2017 and Mario Wonder now in 2023, and also the history of Nintendo releasing some hardware around this time, such as the Switch OLED, I think October has a pretty good chance, if not beforehand. So what I'm getting at here is if this rumor is true, we're probably going to see Metroid Prime 4 around this time, if not beforehand. If the Switch is backwards compatible with the Switch 2, which some rumors have suggested, some others have not, it's not totally clear, but if it's going to be both a portable and home console system, a hybrid that takes in cartridges, I would say it's likely. And when you have Pokemon on the system, considering how Pokemon likes to handle things, backwards compatibility really makes a lot of sense. So if Metroid Prime 4 is a Switch game but has enhanced visuals for Switch 2, maybe they could release it after the launch of Switch 2, but it still comes out around that launch window. But I think this would be suggesting the Switch 2 comes out even sooner. Maybe sometime between July or September if Nintendo wants to have several games to come out leading into the holidays. And maybe that's what their intention is, to have 3D Mario, then Metroid Prime 4, then maybe a Pokemon Legends game, maybe another big multiplayer game. It may be too soon for a Mario Kart, but maybe something like that. Maybe they want to go into the holidays with a really nice, well-balanced lineup for the Switch 2. But the other possibility is that Metroid Prime 4 is a first half of 2024 release. We did hear from Nate DeHate a while ago that he was expecting it to come out by the end of the fiscal year. I'm not sure that's going to happen at this point, unless Nintendo has this crazy announcement in a September Direct and it comes out in March. It's possible, but it's looking like the trajectory of Metroid Prime 4 is more likely coming out a bit beyond that. So maybe a major summer release, so maybe it comes out in the summer, and then they have an enhancement patch with some DLC as well that come out for Switch 2. So there's a better version made available for Switch 2 going to the holidays. That is another possibility. Trying to pinpoint the timing of this and seeing what slots where is kind of challenging. However, simply the idea that Metroid Prime 4 looks to maybe be coming out sometime next year, in the same year that we could be getting next generation hardware that's going to launch with a 3D Mario game, in the same year where we may get a Pokemon game that, if speculation is correct and some of the rumors and leaks are correct, could be something very exciting, maybe like a Legend-style Pokemon game. And also with Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon and that new Peach game. It's looking like next year is shaping up to be quite the year. I've yet to even mention that the Donkey Kong expansion to Super Nintendo World is also due next year. So if that's happening, is that rumored Donkey Kong game we've been waiting for going to be announced relatively soon, if not on the upcoming September Direct sometime next year? Maybe 2024 can rival 2017 when Nintendo launched the original Switch. And something else that I think is worth noting here is that the rumor is also suggesting that this is coming out for Switch. And I know there's been some debate because of how long we've had to wait that maybe they're pushing Metroid Prime 4 as an exclusive for the Switch 2. This rumor would suggest otherwise, which I think makes sense because they initially promised it for Switch fans, and there's a huge install base, so it's a grand opportunity for more people to give Metroid Prime 4 a try. But perhaps the most impressive implication of this rumor is that Metroid Prime 4 is being considered the last big Nintendo Switch game. It could be the swan song of the Nintendo Switch, which I would find somewhat poetic because Metroid Prime 4 was initially announced for Switch back in 2017, just a few months after its release, and it will be coming out in Switch's final year as the primary platform for Nintendo. If there's any validity to what we're talking about here, I think there's a really good chance we see some type of announcement regarding Metroid Prime 4 in either this upcoming September Nintendo Direct or sometime in the first half of next year. So if not this September Direct, maybe an earlier Direct, or at the very latest, next year's Summer Direct, at the very latest. If it's not announced then it's definitely sometime way beyond. But what do you guys think? How do you think Nintendo is going to position Metroid Prime 4? Is it going to be the last big Switch game? Is it going to be a part of the launch window for Switch 2? Or something else? Let me know in the comments below. This is Andres Restart. Thank you so much for listening and watching, and I'll see you all really soon. Take care.